Well, welcome to another episode of the Coffee Break Podcast, where we share business ideas, practices, and strategies. My name is Chad Lingenfeld with Loc-Doc Security. Today, our guest is from multiple different organizations. But
sure.
F3 is one that we're going to be talking about today, as well as one G3L.
Indeed.
If I got that one correct.
I'm a fan of acronyms.
Yes, and with threes in it. So
well, it's better that way.
Yes,
it's a perfect number.
There you go. So we're going to figure out what all of those acronyms mean and how it applies to leadership. That's going to be the focus of our conversation today. We'll be right back after this.
We got so much to say. We got a podcast to make. We're sipping on lattes, and it's time for a coffee break. It's time for a coffee break. Oh, yeah.
All right, welcome back, Frank. Thank you very much for being here today.
Glad to be here, man.
And I guess we should give a huge shout out to Justin Tebow, or Kilowatt, as he may be more known in the F3 world, for recommending this conversation today. We were talking about it earlier. I was having dinner with him the other week, and he's like, "You need to talk to Frank." Okay, let's talk to Frank.
Who knows why that is, but
who knows
he's a very
why.
generous man.
Yes, he is very, very kind. So appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to be here today.
Yeah,
we've already been having a really good conversation, so hopefully we can bring some of that back.
I'll try not to ruin it from here.
drive it all together. We do have one segment on our podcast every week called Rapid Fire.
I have been preparing.
You have?
Oh, yes.
Well, I'm
very nervous.
I'm going to give you. So I've been getting some feedback from some folks saying, "Hey, I've been listening and I'm anticipating these certain questions." So lucky for you, we were able to find 350 new questions that have never been used before, and I've got 5 of those for you. Randomly selected.
Ready, baby.
With unknown point values.
Perfect.
Just for you.
Right.
All right, number 1. What gets you excited about life?
The living of it.
Okay.
Because, and I know, so this is going to sound a little cheeseball, right? But go with me. And that is, once you have a recognition, I think, and an understanding of where your life fits in the bigger scheme of the universe and the world and the people around you and all that kind of stuff, every day you wake up, it's kind of a fantastic deal.
Yeah.
So I get excited about life because I've got an amazing wife, fantastic children, men that I, love and care for and work with and all that kind of stuff. And it's just a relentless run for improvement.
Yeah.
And that is, my life is kind of this impossible, amazing thing that I get a lot of kicks out of.
Cool. You get excited about it every day. All right, number 2. What can you describe your life in a 6-word sentence?
Describe my life at its present
in a 6-word
sentence. That's 7.
This is fun.
It's good. This could take me a second.
This is going to be one of my favorite questions.
My life in 6 words.
He's counting. That's 5, 6, 7.
Okay, we'll go with that.
All
right. Striving to equal the task ahead.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
That's pretty solid for 45-second processing.
Smarter than the average.
Yeah, this is going to be the fun question to ask people because
that's tough.
That's a tough one to think of on the spot.
Yeah,
we'll never use it again because people will be prepared for it.
You're going to crush them.
Yeah. Number 3, what is the best decision that you've ever made?
Ooh, best decision I ever made. We'll go with the low hanging fruit.
Okay.
And we'll say marrying my wife.
All right.
That's an easy one.
Good, solid answer.
Throw that up.
Plus 50 points.
Yeah.
And number 4, what is the most spontaneous thing you've ever done?
You
don't strike me as a spontaneous man.
I'm not overly known for spontaneity.
Yeah.
I don't do surprise very well.
Okay.
I don't dig it. But I would say the closest that I've come probably to doing a just wildly big spontaneous thing was, and actually pulling it off, was for my wife's 40th birthday. I planned a trip to New Orleans, and I managed to keep it quiet from her the whole time.
Yeah.
She had no idea where we were going, and that was probably as close to wildly spontaneous as I could get. Probably.
Cool. Yeah. All right. Number 5, what impact do you want to leave on the world?
Man, you loaded these up. Where are the old questions? Man.
We had to retool.
All right. Let me think. What impact do I want to leave on the world? Well, and we were talking about this a little bit earlier as we were kind of catching up to get prepped for doing this together. And I think that really for me, I want to. Well, my hope is that I see the good in others and help them achieve the good they can in their lives.
Okay,
that's one of the big ones. But I think with that, what that really means to me is helping to develop people into virtuous leaders, to help them to understand that they don't have to take what's given to them.
Yeah,
but they can act on their own mission and make the world a better place.
That's a great impact to leave. So there you go.
Hope.
5 rapid fire questions.
There
you
was.
Passed.
And my point was,
we'll give you a score of
-7.
764.
Ooh,
so
I feel pretty good about that.
pretty solid. I should have put a 3 in there. Man, missed that one. All right, so
Point 3.
Point 3. Frank, I want to talk a little bit about, to kind of start with, what is F3? You've got F3 on your shirt.
Yes.
So we'll definitely want to highlight that. That's kind of where all this started from. Brief description, what is F3 if no one has ever heard of it before?
If you've never heard of it before, probably the easiest way to describe it would be it is a men's workout group. That's probably real bare bones kind of description. The 3 Fs, though, stand for fitness, fellowship, and faith.
Okay.
And so our philosophy is kind of that first you got to get your body and mind in order.
Yeah.
So you start with yourself, then you look to others, the second F being fellowship. And then once you've gotten those things kind of in order, it's time to look outside yourself. For us, faith doesn't mean a particular denomination, a particular sect, a particular religion, or anything like that. It really just means an acknowledgement of something bigger than yourself.
Yeah.
And so if you're a Muslim, we want you to be the absolute best Muslim that you can be. If you're a Christian, we want you to be the absolute best Christian that you can be. If you're a Bob Dylan spiritualist, as my friend Dave likes to say, right? Then by golly, be the best one of those that you can be.
Yeah.
But it's an acknowledgement that you're not the king of the world.
Yeah.
You're not the center of the universe.
So F3, doing the research that I had, it looks like you've got over 3,000 of your groups. Is that right?
It's tough because I don't know if you've ever read the book The Starfish and the Spider. Nope. Ori Brofman. It's a great book, but it sort of describes the different kinds of organizations that exist. Right?
Okay.
So a spider, if you cut the head off a spider, it's dead.
Sure.
So essentially, collected control is problematic in that kind of an organization. A starfish, if you cut the leg off a starfish, you grow a whole new starfish.
Yeah.
Right. And so as a starfish type organization, it's tough to really know exactly because we've sort of unlocked the men and they've sort of launched them. In fact, I saw something, a Tascasita. Is that even a place? I don't know. Like a new one that popped up this morning. We don't know about it in the central office, right? We have no idea.
Yeah.
But these men are free to lead and they're going and doing their thing. So yes, somewhere in the neighborhood of 3,000-ish maybe workouts that happen in any given week across 30-something states and a few countries. And
you were saying that you think that it's about 30,000 people? Is that what you were saying earlier?
Between 30 and 35, somewhere in that neighborhood. Again, we have a decent idea, but we don't keep records or anything like that, so it's just kind of it's a little bit of an estimate.
And you're not collecting membership dues and all this stuff to put it on the balance sheet.
Always free, man. Always free.
So the theory behind it, and I first heard about F3, several years ago from some of the folks that worked here. They said, hey, F3, you got to check it out. You just basically show up. You go online, find a group closest to you. You show up, and everybody welcomes you in,
and off you go. Yeah.
And excuse me, I think the theory is that it's an early morning workout. Typically, but it's not requirement. No, because it's very loose.
Yeah, I'll tell you, we operate on 5 core principles.
Okay.
And that's it. And so if you're doing these 5 things, then you're really running an F3 workout. The specifics of how you do these things or, kind of what flavor it takes on in different parts of the country or anything like that, we don't really have a lot of interest in that. We want you to run them how you think you should run them.
Gotcha.
But the 5 core principles are kind of the non-negotiables, right? First is that it's free.
Okay.
No matter what. Always will be, forever and ever, amen.
Yep.
We'll never collect a single due from a man to show up to a workout.
Sure.
And that's because we want to lower that barrier to entry, right? If we really think this is the best thing in the whole wide world, then why would we keep it to ourselves?
Yeah.
Right? The second is that it's open to all men, and we take that pretty seriously, right? So we think that it doesn't matter, like we were saying before, like what your faith is. It doesn't matter what color your skin is. It doesn't matter what you do for a living.
Yeah.
And that's one of the coolest things, I think, is the fact that it is open literally to all men, and we make any kind of reservation about that whatsoever.
Sure. So you got all kinds of interesting connections.
Yeah. And it's kind of interesting in certain parts of town. You'll have guys who live in $2 million houses working with guys who are blue collar workers. I mean, it's depending on where you are, right?
Sure.
It's possible. And the cool part is unless you ask, you have no idea.
Yeah, because you're all on the same level.
You're all the same level. You're all working out the same way. You're all doing the same things.
Yeah.
In fact, there's a couple of workouts that happen in town. One happens at the homeless shelter, recovery facilities. All kinds of stuff like that.
Awesome.
You got surgeons, and they go out, man, and they're sweating right alongside the same guys. So it's open to all men for that reason, right? The third is that it happens outdoors.
Okay.
Always outdoors.
All right.
Rain or shine, heat or cold.
Yep.
Doesn't matter. So a couple weeks ago, it's, bumping up against 35, 36 degrees, and it's pouring down rain. The faithful show. Yeah. We'll come out and we'll work out anyway. We don't care. And we do that because we believe in building durability of mind and body in men, right? And that's part of getting right.
Yeah.
Like we were talking about a little bit earlier, and we'll get to a little bit more later. But so that's what that's about. The fourth one is that it's peer-led, right? It's always guys who participate in the workout. There's nobody standing there with a clipboard, counting your reps, telling you, right? So it's very internal. It's very self-regulated,
okay,
right? And policed that way. So it's in a rotating fashion. These guys will, so if you were to come,
gotcha.
Let me rephrase that. When you come,
there you go,
right, to an F3 workout, eventually, after a few times, you kind of get what's going on. You'll be told, hey, it's your turn, man.
Yeah.
Or you'll be asked, I guess. We're not going to tell you. We're not going to force you to do it.
Sure.
Right? But you would have an opportunity to participate. And for some guys that show up, that may be the first time that they've stood in front of a group of men and led them in some way.
Yeah, that's
right?
interesting.
I mean, depending on where you are in the country and what it is, right, they may not have had those kinds of opportunities. And so you provide that's pretty low risk.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, we're going to make fun of you a little bit because we're men, right? But it's pretty low risk in terms of failure.
Sure.
Right. And so it's that's core principle number 4 is it's always led in a rotating fashion. Then the fifth core principle is that we end in what we refer to as a circle of trust. And the circle of trust is could be anything from, in some parts of the country, it ends up being a prayer. In other parts of the country, it might just be kind of a shout out, to each other, to a higher power, to who knows.
Yeah.
Right. But you typically would share your name in that circle. You'll share your age because we always think it's interesting to find out, which old guys outran us this week, whatever it might be, right? And then you'll share your F3 name. Now, while the F3 name is not a core principle, it is one of our, stalwart pieces of culture.
Sure.
That sticks around. And so everybody that comes gets an idiot nickname.
Yep.
And you have to kind of own it. Because you're not going to necessarily like it.
Yeah, and you don't get to pick it. It's picked by the group. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's very tribal, in that sense, and we want you to just feel like you're part of the team, man. And a lot of times we'll pick something that, like the guy with a big nose, we'll call him Schnoz, or the guy with big ears, we'll call him Dumbo or whatever. Sure. And a lot of that's because it's like we want you to understand none of that stuff matters here, man. Yeah. It's just whatever you were picked on as a kid, like nobody's picking on you here. Yeah. Because it truly is out of love. Yeah, and that's really how this functions.
Well, it's a core part of the community, right? Is that you're bringing someone in, you're recognizing them, and you're just engaging with each other. That's just part of the whole community aspect.
Exactly.
And I would imagine that's what keeps people coming back. That core sense of community, challenge, and you're building relationships out of that. And again, because there's no barrier to entry, then it's open for anybody. Yep. Join. Let's go. Let's do this. And then if you engage in that community, then you're there, you're bought in, and you're going to keep coming.
Exactly. And all we ask is that you follow the 5 core principles, and then really at some level we want you to believe in the mission as well, which is to plant, to grow, and to serve these small men's workout groups with the purpose of invigorating male community leadership. Because the guy who founded F3, Dave Redding, and a buddy of his, Tim Whitmire, that was the thing that got them more frustrated than anything in the whole world. Yeah. They would go to church, they would go to these different places, and they would just see guys with their hands in their pockets going, well, I don't know, man. I guess, it's just my life. This is just the way it happens. Yep. And they said, what, we kind of reject that idea. So we want to invigorate the male community leadership around us and brother, I'm here to tell you, that's what's happening.
Yeah.
I mean, across the whole country. It's crazy.
You build a community of somewhere around 35,000 people. That's nothing to shake a stick at. And it's because those core principles, that community aspect is there, people are buying into it, and that's part of the growth. That's why people are coming back. So that's pretty amazing. So with that, one of the things that, as kind of this conversation started to come about, and I think one of the reasons why Justin was very intrigued by connecting this was because one of the things that we focus on around here a lot is leadership development. It's something that, I'm very intrigued by, constantly trying to figure out how that works. And as we were talking earlier, focused on kind of team building within our organization is developing leaders and developing the next level of leadership and understanding that. And that is something that aligns very well with F3, which also aligns with some of the principles that you've identified in your life. So what about that peer leading, that aspect really, I guess, caught your attention? And really, because you were talking earlier before that you got involved with F3 by showing up to a workout. Like this was not, you
came on a Saturday.
You weren't one of the founders. You just showed up and kind of got involved. So tell us a little bit about why you showed up and then what kept you coming back.
Okay. So what made me show up in the first place truly is, so rewind 5 years or so, I was about 40 pounds heavier. Yeah. Had high cholesterol, high blood pressure, sleep apnea, all kinds of stuff. Typical middle-aged fat guy problems. Sure. Right. And my doctor, who had been begging me for years, she was like, "Look, just do a little exercise." And I was always like, "I'm building a business. I don't have time to, I'll get there. It's fine. I'll be fine." And she, whatever. So finally I went in for, the annual physical to make sure I was going to run for another year. And, they lifted the hood and she was like, "All right, this is the year. Yeah. If you don't do something now," basically she said, I'm going to go ahead and prescribe all these medicines to you, statins and this and that, whatever. Sure. And I said, "I don't think I like that idea." And she says, "Well, I don't know how to tell you. Yeah. This is where we're at. If we don't do this, then, you're at risk for heart attack, stroke, blah, 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 all these different things." Right. And so I said, "This sounds more serious than the last couple of years that I've come in here. I guess I better do something." So I started going to the gym with a buddy of mine.
This wasn't just jokes that you were sharing with me. This is real life.
Like, "Well, your health is at risk." And I'm like, blah, blah, blah. Health is at risk. Sure.
It's interesting. I've heard that story from a lot of men that have gotten to that point. And it's that, okay, let me go ahead and write the prescription out. And it's like, oh, I have to do something.
Yeah. Somehow then it becomes real. And you're like, oh, she wasn't joking.
Yeah.
Like that's going to happen. So yeah, that was it. So I started going to the gym, and then I just keep hearing about this F3. And candidly, at the time, I was just like, I'm fine. I'm going to the gym, and I've lost a little weight, and everything's fine, But I'd heard about it enough times, and then a buddy of mine that I worked with had started doing it, and I kind of bumped into him, and I was like, "Man, okay, I'll give. What is it? You look pretty good, man." He's like, "Yeah, I've lost a bunch of weight, feeling good, yada yada." It's this F3 thing, and then he really starts putting the heavy, as we call it, the emotional headlock on you. And, and he says, this is what you ought to do. So I was like, all right, fine. So I went to the website, just like you said, found a workout that was nearby me on a Saturday morning, and then just showed up. And it's an hour-long workout on a Saturday. I go in there and I start, working out with these guys. And about halfway through, and I didn't have a watch on, I didn't know that was a thing, right? It was in November. It was cold. It was just miserable. I mean, it was like frost on the field, the whole bit, right? And so about halfway through, two guys were leading that morning. I didn't know that. But about halfway through, one of them says, "All right, guys, bring it in here." And I was like, oh, thank goodness that's over. That's like the most miserable experience of my life. We ran all around and all these push-ups, all this kind of stuff. And I was like, that was really hard. And he goes, "All right, for the second half, I'm going to hand it off to this guy." And I was like, how was there a second half? And but then part of what hooked me, and kept me coming back was you get down to the end of that time together, and you've gone through some shared suffering. Yeah. And so you feel a little bit bonded in that sense, and then as we ended that time together, and everybody kind of balled up in what we call a big ball of man. Yeah. You lay your hands on a guy, and somebody offered a prayer. And if they had, no matter what they would have said, I don't think it would have mattered. Yeah. At that point, but for me, I was like, that's different.
Mm-hmm.
That's very different
Yeah.
than other things that I've ever experienced. Like
a little different than just going to the gym by yourself and then leaving.
Way different, right?
Yeah.
It was different from gym. It was different from church. It was, it was just a different experience altogether. And I was like, this is intriguing. So I was like, maybe I'll come back again next Saturday. And then from there, it just kind of, snowballed. And now I'm forgetting the second question that you asked me. So I showed up to not be fat. That was my intention.
That was the reason you showed up. What kept you coming back?
Yeah. Well, that was it. What kept me coming back was the men, and being around them and getting some friends. Now look, I'm a reasonably extroverted individual.
Okay.
Right. I make friends pretty easily. I had a lot of friends, and I was pretty well churched up. And like I have a ton of friends at church and people I hung out with, and whatever.
Yeah.
But somehow the quality of these relationships were a little bit different, and I attribute a lot of that to lack of a better term, that shared suffering.
Yeah.
That
a little bit of vulnerability.
Yeah. And plus it was hard. I mean, it was really hard. And there's a part of you inside, I think, as a man and maybe as a person in general, but as a man that you kind of go, look what I just did.
Yeah.
And then you kind of go, I wonder if it's going to be harder next week, and maybe I can do that too. Right.
Yeah.
So your brain just starts to unlock a little bit. And it's through the physicality, I think, that happens initially. And then you start to see how your brain can unlock to, fixing problems and solving things and just improving yourself in a lot of different aspects.
Sure. I think one of the interesting aspects of it is the fact that it's peer-led, right? So that leader philosophy that you're exhibiting what you want done, and then you're allowing other people to step up and do that. And then you're also encouraging outside of those groups to launch additional groups, right? That's the kind of organic growth philosophy. Yeah. And it's very interesting because that is the core aspects of developing a good quality organization, because people they're committed to it.
Yeah.
If somebody comes in and they've bought into that leadership philosophy, they've bought into those core principles that you have, and they're willing to go start their own group, then it's really like there's no stopping that, because they're going to do the same thing with that group, and they're going to identify leaders, and those are going to launch again.
That's the hope.
Yeah,
that's the starfish model, right?
Right.
So you get to a critical size here, and you kind of go, man, there's like 30 guys here. It's tough to control. It's tough for one guy to manage that many people in one small workout for 45 minutes. Maybe it's time that we cut this off and start another one, and then it just they just keep growing like that.
So taking that same principle, the starfish model, and how to flip that over into the business world. All right. So that's where the focus is with this podcast is all about, it's not necessarily about fitness, but it's an interesting lead in because it really connects with people, and not just men in that aspect, but just people. How do you take that model of finding a level of commitment and engagement like that, and then replicate it into whatever business or organization that you're a part of, maybe some other community group that you're a part of, just trying to really develop people in that same way.
Right. So people don't necessarily like to follow, but they love to be led.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right. And so the concept here is really that of diffused authority, right? So it's not that we believe that we have all the answers when it comes to fitness or anything like that, right? And really, we're only marginally a fitness group, as it were.
Yeah.
But so if you look at that model in an organization, the problem that we have a lot of times in organizations is you have, it's very spidery, right? So you have this head person, top person. They have all the decision-making power. They have all the authority. They have all the rights and, privileges and whatever, right? Yep. And then they tell people what to do.
Yep. Tell the legs what to do.
Right.
Yep.
And then those legs may have other legs underneath them or whatever, but, but it's basically, it's a very top-down sort of, endeavor, right? And if the guy at the top is virtuous, which we hope that he would be, then maybe at least he's telling them good things to do, and that kind of thing, right?
Yep.
So in this situation, for example, Loc-Doc, right? So you sit at the top of Loc-Doc. It'd be very easy for you to go, we will install these kinds of locks forever. Sure. That's the end of it, right? And that was kind of what was happening to you. If I remember the story that you were telling me before, is you had a guy who was kind of sitting at the top, and I'm hope I'm not making anybody mad if I tell this story, right? We'll cut this if we need to, but there was just a lot of like, we're not going to do that.
Yeah.
Well, he had the authority. He had the institutional authority to say, we're not going to do that.
Yeah.
You know, and here's this guy underneath, you know, on the org chart, right?
Yeah.
Who's going, but I think there's opportunity here.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I think we can do this. No. Why is the no there? Now, I don't know this person and I don't know the story and I'm not going to conjecture. So maybe we move it out of the Loc-Doc realm into any other business anywhere.
Sure.
Guy at the top says no.
Mm-hmm.
Why does he say no? What's he afraid of exactly?
Yeah.
You know, or where's the ego playing into that?
Yeah.
And that's where the real problem is,
Mm.
right? This guy is operating from a place of fear, and he says to himself, if I don't have all the answers, they won't love me as a leader.
Yeah.
They won't respect me.
Yeah. That's valid, right?
It feels valid.
Yeah.
It's not valid,
Yeah.
but it feels valid, right? Our culture would have you believe that that is valid.
Yeah. Well, it's a normal, I guess it's a valid theory based off of the normal behaviors that you see.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes. It is intuitive-ish,
Sure.
right? We'll go with that.
Yeah.
And what we say is this guy underneath here who has this great idea and sees opportunity, all this leader really should be doing is figuring out a way to let that man or woman unlock themselves.
Yeah.
And to give them diffuse my authority down. Now, responsibility cannot be delegated.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
But authority can.
Yeah.
So I will delegate this authority down and say, go, make amazing things happen. I'm going to provide an environment for you where we're going to develop you into a leader.
Sure, yeah.
That's the whole point. You want an organization of leaders, not an organization with leaders.
Yeah.
And so, you know, you think of like a Zappos as an example. My understanding is, and I haven't read extensively on the subject,
Yeah.
but my understanding is, you know, even every customer service rep was fully empowered to do whatever it needed to happen.
Whatever they needed to make him happy. Yep.
Right? That's diffused authority.
Yeah.
The responsibility for whether or not that happens, of course, still rolls up to the top, but that diffused authority is part of what makes it work.
Yeah.
And that's not just from an idea incubation standpoint necessarily, but it's in everything.
A day-to-day operation, trying to figure out how to allow people that runway to just say that you have full authority to get this taken care of.
Yeah. Because look, and I my personal feeling is a lot of it comes from ego, you know, at the top, which breeds fear, which breeds control, which breeds, you know, a lack sort of mentality. You know, they want to keep things protected,
Yeah.
right? But my experience is that if you'll get out of people's way, they'll do the right thing.
Yeah.
You know, and so for us, you know, we say, with F3 as the example, we say, okay, here's the mission, here are the 5 core principles,
Mm-hmm.
and now your job is to unlock your brain and find it within you to go and further that in some way,
Yeah.
right? To make things happen.
It's very interesting. So, you know, the kind of the theory and I've had this conversation in my own family with my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to have this list of things you can and can't do, right?
Hold your daughter.
11.
Okay. Only one?
I've got a son too, but he's 3.
Okay.
But so he's not quite
Pretty big gap.
Yeah, not quite bought in on
got
the
it.
philosophy yet.
You'll
But
get there.
we talk about our family core values.
Yeah.
And these are ways that you can make decisions on your own, because I can't write the rule book for everything that you're going to come across. When you're at school every day, I cannot already have those things predetermined for you of these are all of the rules that you have to follow, because you're going to approach something that's going to be outside of the rules that have been established. How are you going to make that decision?
Yeah.
And so we've been very focused on establishing what are those core values of our family that we want to abide by, so that whenever you're in a decision, you know, is it kind? Is it honest? You know, and can I make that decision based off of those values?
Yeah.
And then you're free to make that choice. And if you can come back and point it to these values, then it works. It's the same thing in business. You figure out what those core principles are, those core values are, and say, as long as it aligns with this is the mindset that we want to operate under, then you're free to make decisions accordingly.
So let me ask you a couple questions then. So you've gotten this.
That's not how this works, Frank. No.
Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry.
Just kidding.
But you've got this 11-year-old daughter. I've got 3 daughters as well.
Mm-hmm.
They're about to be 16, 14, and 10.
Oh,
right?
wow.
So just a little bit ahead, but not too far. When she comes back and
14, 16, and 10?
Yeah, 16, 14,
Oh,
10.
16, 14.
Yep. Did I say it in the wrong order?
I think you did, but I may have heard it in the wrong order. Go ahead. You're fine.
I've got an older one, a middler one, and a younger one.
There you go.
Yeah. No, 16, 14, 10. I hope I did that right. But what order does it matter?
I'm just processing it in my head, Frank. It's
no,
okay.
I'm just kidding. But the point is that she comes back and she says, Dad, I made a decision based on X criteria, based on our core values. I feel like it aligned, and you don't like the decision. Now what?
Was that a question to me?
Yeah.
Oh.
Right, now what?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Right? And that's my point with the diffused authority to some degree, right? You gave her the opportunity to act. So do you punish her?
Yeah. So if it aligns with the core values, but you don't agree with the decision, can that happen?
Sure.
Okay.
Don't make me come up with an example really fast. All right. Let's see. Or maybe she handled it not the way you would have handled it, right? And so you kind of go, I don't know if I agree with that. I don't think I like that. And because of your experience, even you might even say, I know that, as we play this tape to the end, where that's going to end up.
I don't like the way it was handled, but the decision was
sure it aligned with the core values, but I don't know that it was the best decision that could have been made because I know what it's going to lead to 6 months from now, or whatever. Like, so got drama with my friend. I did the honest thing. I did the kind thing. I did all the things. But what that meant was whatever.
We have to deal with the consequences, right?
And so what do you do? I mean, do you fire her? Right? Or maybe she did all the right things and it still ended in abject failure. Yeah. Do you fire her?
How do you recover from that?
How do you recover from that, right? And I think that people recognize they can't fire their children. No matter how many times my dad said that. No, right? Whatever, right? He's not going to fire your kid. You're going to love him anyway. Yeah. Right? And so I think that's part of the problem that comes as well, and that's part of why there's this fear that kind of revolves around this idea of diffused authority or shared leadership, if you will. Yeah.
So what happens when it gets off track?
Yeah. But we implemented a leadership development process in F3 and also in the G3L business, like I was telling you about. That we teach people is I know it's going to surprise you. There's an acronym. It's SAOF, right? So you've got you want to give them the appropriate schooling.
Okay.
Right? That's the S. And then you want to provide some apprenticeship. Okay? So you want to come alongside them.
Okay.
Right? Put them with a master teacher or master whatever it is, lock person.
Yep.
Right? You showed me that cool door.
Yeah.
So you got some apprenticeship, someone standing there, helping them to go through all the different things, install the different pieces and whatever those things might be, right? So we taught you how to do it in the classroom. Now we're going to stand beside you, watch you do it. Quarter inch this way, whatever the criteria is, right?
Yeah.
Then we're going to provide you is opportunity. Then we're going to take you out in the field.
Yeah.
And you're going to install your first one. And I might not even be there.
Yeah.
Or I might be standing out in the back, someplace watching from way afar and not correcting anything that you do.
Yeah.
Right? And at some point, the F at the bottom is failure.
Yeah.
You're going to fail. Mm-hmm. You can do it completely wrong.
And what do we do about that?
Mm-hmm. Fire you. Right? That's the right answer. Failure equals termination. A lot of times.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? A lot of organizations.
Unless you can figure out a way to learn from the failure.
That's the hope.
Yeah.
A lot of time. I mean, now look, installing a lock wrong one time, probably not grounds for failure. I know you run a tight ship around here, Chad, but I don't think that's it, right? I don't think that's it. But the point being that no matter how many times that person fails, all right, good. Now that we've learned that, now that we've been through that, what's the next piece of schooling that you need? What kind of other opportunity we need to give you? Whatever the thing might be, right?
Yeah.
So a failure doesn't have to be a terminal event.
So with the leadership style from the G3L that you're kind of a coaching type structure, is that what that is? What's the purpose of it? What are things that people can identify and say, hey, that's something that I align with. That's something that I want to find how to implement into my organization.
I gotcha. So the big overarching philosophy, I think, is the idea of creating leaders and teams within an organization, right? So you've got a large organization all working for the same purpose. They may or may not be proximate to one another necessarily. Mm-hmm. And so within that, you want to develop teams to accomplish mission, right? And so what we want to teach is how do we create organizations of leaders where people are empowered to act, right? Mm-hmm. Where ego doesn't play a part, where mission is focus number one, rather than self-preservation, rather than, you know how it works. You work with these kinds of clients.
Yeah.
Right? Big corporate, large
yeah.
enterprise entities. And a lot of times people are just trying to carve out and figure out, okay, how do I protect my little team, or how do I protect my little piece of the world, or how do I not make anyone upset?
Yep.
Right? I just want to maintain status quo long enough to retire.
Yeah.
And then I will retire, and then I can read you all the statistics about how you're going to die in 6 months because you have no purpose in your life.
Yeah.
Right? So our job is with G3L is to try and teach them how to, in a very F3 fashion,
Sure.
right, to develop and maintain dynamic teams within their organizations so that they can accomplish the mission that they have.
So you basically go in and help them assess that, figure that out, define it, and then work
help them
to
structure a leadership development process, with all those different steps, but that are particular to their world.
Yep.
Right.
So here's a question for you, because I think in the people that I've talked to and understanding who's listening to our podcast or watching our podcast, there's companies all over the place. There's solopreneurs all the way up to organizations, and then there's intrapreneurs that are inside of larger organizations that are trying to work and develop teams in a large corporate environment. How do you identify at what point you start working through those or working towards that team building leadership philosophy? So, does that
help me?
You've got 2 people, 3 people, 4 people. At what point do you start trying to assess that mindset?
That's a really good question, because we typically work with a certain set of people, and so. But that's a good question.
Because again, going back to, you talk about Loc-Doc, the way it started with 1 person, then 2, then 3. Like, at what point do you start going, well, we need to create some type of leadership development here? Right. It's just 3 of us. Why does it matter?
So that's what you're kind of asking is. So I would say, I don't know if you guys ever went through this kind of an exercise, right? So when I first started my other business, right, it was a corporate communications business, right? And one of the first things I did was I created an org chart. Yeah. Right. Now, early on, my name was in every slot on the org chart, right? That's just kind of how it works. But I recognized even then that I was going to have to give up certain things, certain responsibilities, certain duties at some point, right? So I think it starts today. I mean, the fact is, unless you're the guy who sells it, executes every piece of it, then maybe, I don't know, maybe then you don't need one. But I still think you're going to work with other people. Yeah. And you're going to find ways, if you want to scale past just you ever, you're going to have to find a way to have those kinds of processes in place, right?
So that's the question, is if you have an intent to scale. Yeah. So you have an intent to scale, you should at every point, go ahead and start defining what that organizational chart looks like. Because I can tell you, through the growth of this business, Chris and I had sat down multiple times, and what's the point? I mean, literally, we've had the conversation. What's the point of making up an org chart? There's 7 of us. We all know what we do, and we just do it as it happens. We just take care of it. Like, why do we need to document it?
And if you want to stay that size and stay that way, because every system is perfectly designed to get the results that it is getting.
Sure.
And so if that's what you've designed and that's what you want to stay as, then that's fine.
Yeah. But I think you bring a valid point.
Go ahead.
And I don't mean to interrupt you.
Go ahead.
But during that process where we said, hey, it doesn't make any sense, at a point, a pivotal moment to spur growth was when we did document it all out. Right. And almost exactly what you just said. We wrote down every department that we wanted to have. It was
a business like ours that is much larger does have.
Sure. Yeah. And right now, one person handles these 4 different departments and these 4 different roles, but we know as it grows that we're going to have to put an individual in each of these roles. Right. But identifying that early on helps you to cast a little bit of a vision to say, this is where we want to go, and this is how we're going to get there, versus I'm just so swamped right now in the day-to-day, I can't even think about all of that stuff. We just fix it as it happens.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's exactly right. And so I think part of the answer I was going to give too is just that you kind of pick when you do it, right? You can either do it with your pants around your ankles, because you got caught, right? Sure. And now you're in trouble and you got to figure it out, or you can prepare. Yeah. And that's one of the one of our core principles as well within our development process is learning how to get prepared. Yeah. And looking ahead and trying to figure out what is going to happen for sure that we know, being prepared for that, but then also remaining ready for what's unexpected, because we know there's going to be unexpected.
Oh, yeah.
And so when you kind of tie it parallel to F3, that's part of why it's peer-led,
Yeah.
Right? I don't know what this other guy, I show up in the morning, I have no idea what he's going to provide me in terms of, workout. There might be cinder blocks there that I have to lift. There might be, 4 miles I have to run. There might, who knows?
Yeah.
Right? And at the same time, like, I might need to be ready for rain, so that's why we do it outside no matter what. I might be ready for 20 degrees outside, all the things, right? And so we recognize that preparedness as a principle through good habit development and discipline, that's where it's going to make the difference.
All right, so let's talk about habits and discipline.
I'm ready.
This has been a conversation around here recently. It's caught my attention. The benefits of building habits and disciplines. What's your philosophy on it, and why is it important?
So if I was to draw a circle,
right,
and a line through the middle, so you can kind of imagine that, right? Big circle, line through the middle.
I feel like we need to get one of those
Saturn-esque,
those boards in here so we could just draw and everything. I like that. But anyways, continue.
Get the guy who's in charge of the budget. Yeah, make that happen. Right? So if you imagine a circle with a line, right? Yeah. On the top of that line, let's say, are leadership habits and skills and competencies that are what we would call creative competencies.
Okay.
So like inclusion, caring, whatever they might be, right?
Sure.
Things that are positive, right?
Mm-hmm.
And below that line are reactive things like ego and criticism and those kinds of things. Things that are clearly these are the things that make people feel worse. These are the things that make people feel better, right? If you
got it,
real general. 75% of leaders, and this is based on it's called a Leadership Circle survey.
Okay.
So they've done thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of these batteries of questions, and people fill them out and blah blah blah. 75% of leaders, not people, leaders of organizations live in the reactive space, right? They're very ego driven. They're often very critical. They often operate from a place of fear oftentimes, and again, sort of that protectivism sort of mindset.
Gotcha.
So if 75% of the people in the world are operating in this place, and they're reactive,
mm-hmm.
meaning that then they, you know who they are, right? You see them. Yeah. Everything's a fire drill. There's never any preparation. There's very little, and sometimes they're pushed into that place by the mechanism of their organization.
Yeah.
But a lot of times, I believe it's because that's how they live their lives. They haven't thought about, well, what am I going to do when X, Y, or Z thing happens?
Yeah.
And so when their kid comes home and says, I did the things, but you don't agree with how they haven't thought about that, and so they react. And the only way they know how to react then is a lot of times with anger or criticism or whatever the things might be, right?
Mm.
And so from where we sit, we say developing a daily discipline of some kind, putting yourself in a situation where you are mentally, physically, and emotionally prepared to handle what comes to you, then you can't break them.
Yeah.
Right? So one of the metaphors that Dave uses a lot that I absolutely adore is, he says you have these individual habits. If you think about these individual habits as bricks, right? And if you're laying these bricks on the side of the road into what would eventually form a guardrail of some kind, right? And so imagine that mountain pass, right? If there's nothing on the side, you're gonna be a little more
cautious.
Yeah, you're not gonna put your foot on the gas quite as hard, right?
Yeah.
But if you have these individual habits, daily bricks that you're laying constantly, and every day, when that guardrail is built, you got a lot more confidence in your ability to accelerate, right?
Yeah.
And so that's I think the role of discipline and the role of that consistency that I think is essential to virtuous leadership.
Yeah.
I don't think you can lead an organization effectively and virtuously. When I say virtuous, I mean that you have leadership skills, but you also have leadership virtues.
Yeah.
Right. So you're being a truly effective leader. I don't think you can do that if you are an undisciplined person. It may not be a popular thing to say.
Yeah.
But if you, in fact, I say that, but Bloomberg, it was just this morning I saw an article from Bloomberg that said if these guys that are more likely to cheat on their wives, guarantee they cheat in the boardroom.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because how you do anything is how you do everything, right?
Sure.
I mean, that's the cliche statement, but that's the thing. So this man leads an undisciplined life.
Yeah.
He does not have his life in order.
Yeah.
He has not, as we talked about, gotten right,
Yeah.
properly aligned, and it spills over into everything that he does.
Wow.
And that's why he cheats on his wife and then cheats in the boardroom. And that's why, the superintendent of the CMS schools pushes past the normal procurement process to give a bunch of money to a company that his son happens to work for, and it's a bunch of millions of dollars. And then, magically in the night, he's asked to resign because he took a job as the CEO of that company. What? You're kidding me. Right? It happens all the time.
Yeah.
You look around, and that's the world we live in. And from where I sit, I'm done, brother. I'm not doing that anymore.
Yeah.
I'm not tolerating it anymore. And that's part of why we founded what we founded. And that's part of why F3 has spoken so clearly and plainly to my heart.
Sure.
Because these are the kind of leaders we want to develop.
Yeah.
Are the ones that look and go, I know what the mission is. I know what people need.
Yeah.
And I'm going to base my leadership on love for those people and desire for them to accomplish their missions.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Wow.
Does that make sense?
No, it's very powerful. It's a massive understanding of why discipline matters, is because those disciplines are going to carry out in every aspect of your life. And if you don't focus on that, then you're just an erratic individual.
Yeah.
When you go in and identify with a leadership group and say, hey, all right, we've identified we've got some discipline issues here, that we have some undisciplined categories. Yeah. What is just some tips real quick? Say, hey, here's some tactical things that you can identify as far as starting to create a discipline.
Yeah.
Building that consistency. That's
sure.
How do you do that?
So the question, if I understood, is as a leader in an organization. So I come in and I'm getting ready to lead my team on Monday morning.
Yep.
And I say, I want to start leading them toward disciplines that I think will make them better leaders or better people or that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the first thing you have to do is be real honest.
Yeah.
Be real honest. The chances are good you're not super disciplined yourself.
Correct. Yeah.
Right. Or if you are, then it's time for you to lead. It means you need to take that vision that you have of what a disciplined life has meant to you and figure out a way to articulate that well to your team. And once you've been able to do that, and as they become persuaded, then your job is to be right there behind them and rah.
Yeah.
Just rain down sunshine with both hands on any bit of behavior that leads that way. But they've got to get a really clear vision of why it is.
What's important.
Yeah. Why? Who cares? I got a donut, in this hand and a Twinkie in this hand and, whatever, right? And I'm just pounding food and, that's how I live my life. It's tough for me to see what the value is in that because I get my sugar hit, I get my dopamine rush, right?
Sure.
So I've got to have a real clear vision of, hey, if we're going to be effective together, and if you want to be the best person that you can be, let me tell you what this has done for me and let me tell you how this is, so that leader has to first get right himself.
Yeah.
He can't just tell everybody, what I think you ought to do, right?
So what are the factors to build discipline? Like so the leader understands these are some things. Maybe it's they identify themselves, I'm not disciplined. How could they start just in one area of it? Maybe it's
Sure.
Let's take it out of the health realm. Just maybe it's, hey, I've recognized that I don't respond to emails fast enough, or whatever the case may be. How could I create a discipline around something, a simple task like that?
Yep. The short answer is bricks.
Bricks.
Yep. So it's one brick, right? So if I'm going to build this guardrail that keeps me disciplined and keeps me able to accelerate, I can't take 400 bricks at once.
Yeah.
Right. I can take one.
Yeah.
It's small. It's something that's easy for me to carry. I can handle it. So in this case, if it's I don't respond to email fast enough, first I think it would probably behoove you to objectively criteria.
Define that. Yes.
What does that even mean, right?
Sure.
But once you've done that, and you say, okay, I am going to respond within 2 hours to every email that comes in, and that is my one brick that I can carry.
Gotcha.
And you only carry that, and you keep carrying that brick every day until it's so light, right? That now I can carry another brick, or now I can manage that, right? So it's this is the thing that I find the most frustrating, and I think a lot of times our clients find the most frustrating, is I know as you scroll through your LinkedIn feed, right, or your Facebook feed or whatever, there are the top 5 answers to every problem that ever happened on the planet.
Sure.
Right? And if you'll just do these 6 things, And if you'll just exhibit these two behaviors, and 75% of millionaires do this, right? And if you'll just do those two things, everything will magically get better.
Yep.
And you know intuitively in your heart that it's a lie. You know it, but you don't want to admit it to yourself because you don't want to muster the discipline to actually do those things. Or there's a lot more than 6 things.
Yeah.
And you can't just do them once and expect it to work. The painful truth of this is hard work.
Yeah.
Long term.
Yeah.
For you to become what you're supposed to become, there is no overnight success. There is no magic pill. We all know that.
Yeah.
And we all hear it a lot. But, okay, if this is the first time you've heard it, I'm really sorry. If this is the 100th time you've heard it, then by golly, get with it.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm talking to myself because I did the same thing.
Sure.
Right? It
Sure.
was terrible. It was terrible. I was horribly undisciplined.
Mm.
But that's the thing. It's hard work.
It is.
It's going to take a long time.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I think that's a really good note to kind of bring this thing to a close, because it's a really good concept to that everything is developed on. Everything we've talked about today, F3, leadership development, all of that is based off of creating good disciplines that are based off of good habits.
Yeah.
And as you just stated, it's one brick at a time. So how do I become disciplined in my fitness? Show up to the first workout.
Right.
Show up to the second workout. Show up to the third.
Keep doing it.
Yeah.
And that's the key of F3 or anything else too. And the diffused leadership, all the things is building the teams so that you're not doing this to yourself.
Sure.
That's the other problem that everybody has, right? Because in about 1 month, and I know I'm taking too much time.
Oh, you're good.
But in about 1 month, month and a half, everybody you know is going to join the gym.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And then 2 months after that, everybody you know is going to be not going to the gym.
Yeah.
You know? So it's part of it too, surrounding yourself with those people that will help you, that are dedicated to the same thing that you are. Right? That mission of acceleration, that mission of getting better, that mission of whatever it is in your organization, your company, or anything else, right?
Deciding to create good habits and disciplines and surrounding yourself by people that believe the same thing so that you're doing it as a community.
Got to do it.
I think that's awesome.
Do it.
Frank, thank you very much for all of your insight and input today. This has been very, very informative for me, eye-opening for me. So let me ask you a question. If anybody wants to get a hold of you, I guess F3, anything else that you're working on, what's the best way for them to find you? Yeah,
there's lots of good ways. Probably the easiest ways, if you have F3 questions or comments or things like that, if you're a Twitter person, I'm about to reveal it, right? Yeah. It's at Dark Helmet F3.
There you go.
That's where you can find me on Twitter, because my last name is Schwartz. Spaceballs reference, that's where they came up with the idiot nickname there.
Gotcha.
Or you could send it to darkhelmet@f3nation.com. If you have other questions about leadership or things like that, you can send it to frank@g3l.com.
Okay.
I'm happy to answer questions that way as well.
Awesome. And you are also host of the F3 Nation podcast?
Yeah, we call it the 43 Feet Podcast.
Okay.
Which is a reference to the fact that as a leader, you generally only have about 43 feet of good road built ahead of you while you're forging the path.
Yep.
And so that's kind of where we hope to take it. But yeah, so if you wanted to go and listen to that, just go to Apple Podcasts, find F3 Nation. You can find us there as well.
Awesome. Thank you very much. For those of you who are listening or watching for the first time, we've got plenty of these out there. We do this every Tuesday, 9 a.m. with a brand new episode of the Coffee Break Podcast. You can search that on any of the podcast platforms. You can search for Loc-Doc and you'll find it there. If you haven't already, go to locdoc.net/podcast and you could subscribe to any of the podcast platforms that you're familiar with. It's all there for you in video form. We're on Facebook and YouTube, and of course on Twitter. We're broadcasting this on Periscope every week as well. So check that out, subscribe, and follow that. And we'd love to hear your feedback on this conversation because I feel like this was very informative. This was very, very powerful from a leadership standpoint. Love to hear your feedback on that. You can comment below and let us know your thoughts on it. Again, thank you to Justin Tebow for the recommendation for today's conversation. And we look forward to seeing you next time on the Coffee Break Podcast. To learn more about the topics discussed today and to connect with us online to hear all of the episodes available, visit locdoc.net/podcast.
We got so much to say. We got a podcast to make. We're sipping on lattes, and it's time for a coffee break. It's time for a coffee break. Oh yeah.
The Coffee Break Podcast is brought to you by Loc-Doc Security. We'd love to connect with you online on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and LinkedIn. Just search LOCDOCINC.